Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first live meeting in a few months. Russell, was he expecting a vote?
Didn't say he wouldn't be in.
Okay. Well, with that, I would ask if anyone's recording. Get known, okay, and we'll start off with preliminary business. Do you folks have copies of the minutes?
They were emailed around to all the board members.
You emailed them, I know. But I didn't know if everybody had reviewed them. Did you, Mike, have you looked at the minutes? No? No?
wasn't there anyway.
I've looked at it.
So you? Yeah, you were at that. I didn't see the date. If there's no objections, I can table that for later on, since we don't all have copies here. No problem?
No problem. Yeah, I noticed the date's missing on the minutes. Time's right. Date's wrong.
And we'll move to A&R map 7, lot 34 through 41, and 452 through 457, Red Brook Road, James and Madeline Carr. You got copies of that, Ken?
Here you go, Michael.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF. I'm here on behalf of James and Madeline Carr. What we have before is a Form A plan that we're consolidating small, undersized lots together. We're creating one building lot in one parcel. What we're doing, we're combining lots 34 through 41 for the purpose of creating one building lot. That'll be a little over 31,000 square feet in the area. The zoning requires 30,000 in the R30 zoning district. So we consolidated those lots together to create one 31,000 square foot parcel. Each one has the minimum 150 feet of frontage, whether it be on Red Brook Road or Swift Street. So relatively straightforward plan. We show the zoning circle on the drawing. Doesn't quite fit in this one small corner on the site, but as you know, you can waive that requirement. We would request that it be waived in this instance because the lot is more or less regularly shaped and what have you, and can readily we could readily place a house on it. Similar fashion, parcel 452A comes from a consolidation of 4 other undersized lots, 454 through 457. It ends up being a 10,000 square foot parcel. We've identified that as not a building lot, and that's pretty much it. So we consolidated pretty much all these small undersized lots that they currently own into one building lot in one parcel.
This is R30.
Yes.
Swift Street is, I don't think it's passable now, is it? It's a private, overgrown, I don't think there's even a road there.
It's a 20-foot way. It's shown on a plan. I think ideally, access would come from Red Brook Road in the event a building permit was filed for and a site plan prepared.
The reason I bring it up, Bill, if you look here, here's, you can see where, on your map, you can see Swift Brook Road, right? And if you look at what's there now, that road it goes right about here, through this guy's, whatever building that is. I think it's just a map road.
Well, it's shown on a plan somewhere, so that's why we identify it the way that we have on the drawing. But from a practical point of view, I think if a suitable with-grade construction determination needs to be made before a building permit could be issued, it would be issued for Red Brook Road.
I just want to make sure that the board understands.
Yep.
George Barrett, do we have history of not granting waivers on the circle?
Yes, yes. As he pointed out, the intent has been met in, it's not an oddly shaped lot. Hockey stick, as it's often described. More of a goalie stick in this case.
Yeah, it looks pretty regular to me.
Yeah. Any questions from the board? Would you like to take an action on this?
Entertain a motion to endorse the Form A for James and Madeline Carr.
Second?
Motion's been made by Mike Baptiste, seconded by Mike King. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Twenty-fourth.
24th. And to Ken.
This is a fat pen.
Try to write, Stevie. Next item of business is an A and R for map 61, lots 16, 17, 33, 1171, and parcel 15B, Tower Terrace. That's convenient.
Exactly. I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of Mallory Deacus. This is similar to the previous plan that I presented. It's a combination of a series of lots to create a lot with adequate frontage and area for the purpose of building. This is in the MR30 zoning district, requires 30,000 square feet per lot and 150 feet of frontage. Mallory Deacus owns this undersized lot here. We were entertaining the thought of going to the Zoning Board of Appeals to obtain a variance to build on that undersized lot. But when we were able to take a closer look at this square lot, I'll call it, in the center, it used to be owned by I think they're purchasing, Wareham Fire District owns this lot. There's two small pie-shaped pieces on each side of that lot. So we put those together and tried to figure out how we would create a house lot, a building lot from that information. Then what ended up happening is we didn't have enough area, so we spoke to Mallory spoke to the owner of lot 15. Lot 15 was an oversized lot. So what we've done is we've taken a portion of lot 15 and joined it to our proposed lot to create the 30,000 square feet of area. The Grahams have agreed to divide lot 15, and you'll see the parcel 15A, that will remain with the Grahams, but since lot 15 was owned by the Grahams, We separated a portion out, 15A. It's joined to their remaining lots of 14, 13, and 12, I believe. 12, 13, 14, and 15A. That gives them the remaining land, which is compliant with zoning, so there's nothing, nothing lost there. We're able to show the zoning circle on the existing lot, and then when we combine 15B with 16, with 33, with 1171 and 17, we're able to create a lot of 30,028 square feet with much more than the requisite 150 feet of frontage on the road. We're proposing or planning on tying into town sewer, and the lot will be served by town water. It's really infill type of lotting arrangement here. These lots all were previously existing, and we're really just combining them all together with the exception of 15. We're taking 6,000 feet or so from 15 and adding it to the other lots that I mentioned to give us our 30,000. So that's what we have here. We have the area, we have the frontage.
Help me understand here, I'm a little naive about this, but these properties are owned by different people right now.
That, yes.
And it would seem to, help me here, it would seem to me that if you're gonna merge these into one lot owned by multiple people, that you'd get the ownership straightened away ahead of time. Or they're gonna sell to each other to?
Yes, it's all in agreement. The Grahams have agreed to sell these parcels to Mallory Deacus so that she can build her home on this newly created lot. Her father currently lives right here, adjacent to it. So I think that,
Oh, so you have to do this first because you have to split 15 into 15A and B? Because
Yes.
you're only gonna sell B to,
yeah, I'm not familiar, I haven't seen the agreement that
Got
they
it,
pulled
got it.
together on it,
I got
but
it. Makes
that's
sense.
the intent, yeah. Oh, and just to add, lot 15 is also land court, so we have to prepare a land court plan for this. We're doing this in advance of the land court plan.
It's special designation of property that it's protected. It clears the title on the property.
I have no questions, George.
Entertain a motion to endorse.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. That, just so Bill could get home before the streetlights come on?
No, I have a conflict in another town.
Okay, we've got a request to take the continued public hearing for site plan review for Master Millwork out of the order that is listed in the agenda due to a meeting conflict. Master Millwork. Is 820 the most current?
Revised through 820, yes.
We good? Floor is yours when you're ready.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF here on behalf of Master Millwork at 55 Charlotte Furnace Road. Submitted an application for site plan review for an addition that they were proposing in a site plan modifications they were proposing at the existing facility. We had one initial meeting where some comments were brought up and raised. I think that we went over most of the project, which I'm happy to go over again if you have any specific questions on that. But after that meeting, there was a subsequent review letter that was prepared by Mr. Rowley, and we addressed a few of the issues. One of the big issues here was the 10-foot landscape buffer that was at the rear of the property. I'll show you on I think, sheet number 3. I'll show it on sheet 4. And the reason I bring it up is that the fire department access road that was required, when we submitted the original plans, there was a small projection into the 10-foot buffer zone, landscape buffer zone that's required under the landscape section of zoning. So what we opted to do was to remove 10 feet of that building so that we could basically just build our fire department turnaround at the rear of the building without projecting into the 10-foot landscape buffer. That was one of the first things that was requested in the final review letter that we looked at and did. So this plan number 4, sheet 4, indicates what modifications took place in that particular area. There was a comment also raised relative to the dust collection equipment that's on the exterior portion of the building here, the south-facing portion of the existing building. I guess it would be the southeast corner of it. There's a question as to whether or not the new facility would require that same type of dust collection system. And when I discussed that with the operators of the facility, they said their dust collection system for the newer portion will be contained within the building, inside the building. So there'll be no additional dust handling equipment on the outside of the building. So that was the second comment in Charlie's letter. One of the other comments that was brought up, we decided to put, what we thought was the best situation for the site was to create a service entrance so that all the materials used in production, all the finished product, the workers that work in the manufacturing side of things could have a separate entrance and separate parking area here. What we did is we designed a service road, is what we called it, a service road, that really separates out the administrative portion of the building from the manufacturing and distribution side of things and delivery side. So one of the comments that came up was, could we reduce the width of the existing driveway that services that portion of the site? And we looked at it, we discussed it with the owner, and the owners agreed to trim that down from, I think it was a little over 30 feet, 36 feet thereabouts, to trim it down to 24 feet. That's the maximum driveway width dimension in the town of Wareham. Corresponds to the driveway width required in a 90-degree stall parking layout. So we're showing that as 24 feet now. And we're also showing on the landscaping plan, I think it's sheet number 6, we're showing significant landscaping along that area where the pavement will be removed. So if we look at what's going to take place there, at the end of the day, there'll be a series of landscape material planted on the south side of that existing entrance drive. That drive will be reduced in size to 24 feet. We'll retain the existing drainage components, sheet flow now into this paved waterway, so that rain garden will remain functional. So we're adding landscaping right across from proper pronunciation, a casket, a coxswain.
Aquaxid, I don't know.
Okay, whatever, but across from the intersecting street on Charlotte Furnace Road. So we've trimmed that down, and that'll reduce the vehicle trips at that particular location pretty significantly. It'll be limited to customer service, employees in the administrative office area, salesmen, things of that nature. And I recall, well, I don't necessarily recall, but it's been told by one of my employees that when we were doing Bayside Agricultural, this project was being reviewed at the same time. And there was a little bit of discussion about that driveway and its proximity and the housing across the street. So we think that, it performs a dual function. It really minimizes the amount of traffic that's going in there, and leaving the site really is restricted to automobiles that the employees and visitors would use, and minimize any negative effects of that driveway. Meanwhile, everything would be coming in through this service entrance on the south side of the site. So that's what we did in that particular area to minimize the width of the driveway and to improve some landscape features. We talked about vehicle trips on the site. We had estimated there'd be a total of 125, I think, a day on the property. I did take a look at the previous filing, and they seem to have a traffic report that was done by Vanas and Associates, and I think they thought that for the building that was built originally and some expanded use of that it would not create any additional delays in traffic on Charlotte Furnace Road. So we didn't think a traffic study would be necessary, and that's what we have stated in our review letter. Another comment was comment 5 about conducting a fire flow test for the automatic sprinkler system that would be placed in that building. The building would be fully protected with automatic sprinklers, and we agree that that fire flow test needs to take place in any event, just by virtue of needing the fire protection system in the building. We have to have some baseline fire flow data. Not expecting any problem with that, the way sprinkler systems are designed now, so we had no objection to that request. Other item number 6 was just really a comment. We had Charlie and I had a discussion on the roadway pavement cross-section. We prefer it in a particular way, and I guess we've come to agree that the way we have it is fine. it was a little more than what's required as opposed to asking something that was a little less. So just, we think it's a good cross-section for the intended use. There's heavy traffic going to be in here, so particularly in this vehicle circulation here where the loading is going to take place. We're not going to need an additional dumpster location. The dumpster that exists over here will suffice for the use at the site right now. On number 8, we specify a particular catch basin hood. The eliminator is what we use inside our catch basins. There was discussion as to whether or not we should use an elbow type of a setup. We like the eliminator because it's a lower, smaller, narrower profile. When you use a vac truck to clean a catch basin or use a clamshell bucket, you're less likely to rip that thing off, pick it up with the clamshell and throw it in the back of the truck. So we prefer that, and I think we've come to agreement on that, provided that we have an item in our stormwater maintenance plan that talks about inspection that we do. There were some technical discussions on the runoff and runoff curb numbers that we used. We revised our calculations to accommodate the runoff curb numbers that Charlie was talking about, and there's no issue. We accommodate the flow that's that's going to be delivered to the drainage basin. The drainage basin, we had it designed just with a sand base. Initially, we had it with loam and seed. Then they took the loam and seed out for a drainage question with Charlie. We specified just leaving sand on the basin, but we've since added a 2-inch layer of pea stone. I think just aesthetically that it'll look much nicer, and it will perform the infiltration the way we expect it. So that was another change that was made to the plan. And I think that was it with respect to the review letter. At the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, there were some discussions, and I'll try to recapture each one, but there was a discussion about the lighting, whether the lighting on the facility was dark sky compliant. We conferred with RAB Lighting. They're the people who did our photometrics plan. We specified their lighting for the facility, both the site lighting and the building lighting. You might recall from just looking at the photometrics plan, this photometrics plan indicates the light intensity, it looks like about on a 10-foot grid throughout the site. So they're able to model the light fixtures and determine what the intensity is. It's on the separate RAB sheet. The lighting intensity around the complete site. So you can see that as we get to the perimeter, it's like 1/10 of a foot candle. It's 0-foot candle. So it's virtually no light projecting off-site from the facility. Then there was also a comment raised as whether these fixtures were dark sky compliant, and we conferred with RAB, and they conferred with us that yes, all the lighting that we're proposing for the site would be dark sky compliant. And those images that are on the bottom of the photometrics plan give an indication of what the lighting would look like on the site from an aerial perspective or just from a perspective view in general. So you can see this as we're looking from the southeast corner. You kind of can see the way this is with Charlotte Furnace Road being out here. There's the corner of the building, a little bit of lighting above the man doors, pass doors, emergency exit doors at the rear of the building, a little bit of lighting in front of the loading docks, some lighting in the pedestrian parking, employee parking area, which is what we need for life safety purposes. And as we go down the driveway, there's a little bit of lighting on the service drive. And you might look right over here where the driveway used to exist, or where we're hoping that it used to exist for access to the site. It's much less lit than perhaps it was before. One of the things that we also have with the landscaping plan, if we look at what we do when we isolate the service area, which is effectively this L-shaped piece here. You know, we have 2 truck loading docks here. They're in a ramp that slopes down to dock levelers. Then there's an at-grade door at this location. But if there were trucks coming in, turning and backing, they're screened by vegetation in the parking lot landscape, plus the parking lot and the vehicles that are there. And then there's a heavily banded landscape area right in here. So we have new trees planted, we have trees planted and shrubs along the existing driveway, and then we have trees and shrubs planted along the site access drive. You might also recall that it had been determined on the previous submission on the original building that a 10-foot existing vegetative landscape buffer is what was required by zoning. I double-checked that today. That's what I found. We had industrial uses to industrial uses. I think the housing project to the north, I think they may be holding a 40-foot landscape buffer from this use, but I haven't reviewed that document, so I don't really know. But we have 10 feet all around, 10 feet here, and then for 230 feet along that south drive access line, we have pretty densely vegetated area. Might also recall that this area here is about a 200-foot wide electric easement that's clear cut through its entire width. So for these 230 feet, we have new vegetation planted. For the remainder of the land, we have our 10-foot vegetated buffer.
So Bill, just to be clear, the new service road's going in here,
Yep,
and there will be a 10-foot buffer of existing trees all the way to the back property edge,
yes,
right?
yes. Plus, the first 230 feet will have about 20 feet of new vegetation planted, combination of shade trees and shrubs.
Okay.
So in addition to that, that's what we will also have. So that's where we stand on landscape. I mean, there's a 40-foot minimum landscape buffer from the property to the street line. So we have, you have a minimum of 40 feet on the northerly portion of the site. We are enhancing the landscape here a little bit further south of the driveway. So I think it's pretty comprehensive landscape plan for what we have, and it really, I think that it really isolates out that whole service side of the business from the administrative portion. It's the kind of planning that we've done on other industrial sites throughout the area, in the past. So that's why I think that concept really works a little better here, and I think that it really relieves that whole issue of significant vehicle traffic coming out that main entrance right across from the cross street and directs it down further to the south. All the vehicles are predominantly coming off of Route 495, 195, Route 28. So we're going to have a right-hand turn coming in, and the predominant movement leaving the site is going to be a left-hand turn leaving to get onto those same travel ways. Another comment that came up was earth removal. And with respect to earth removal, I did take a look at the bylaw. I think that earth removal is from any project that's subject to a site plan review, a subdivision plan, an agricultural project, is exempt from an earth removal permit. This project here, it was asked how much material was going to be taken out. This project here has about 30 inches of unsuitable material. Once we do the cutting and the grubbing and the stumping of the area, there's about 30 inches of unsuitable material, meaning that you really wouldn't want to put a building slab on it. So that material has to be removed from the site. So all that material is going to be removed from the site. In addition to when we repave that parking lot, we're putting 5 inches of pavement down in this because we want a heavy pavement cross-section due to the nature of the vehicles that are going to be using it. We're going to strip out the processed grout, the recycled asphalt product that's there. We're going to have to strip that out, likely store it for future use, cut our grade down an appropriate amount so that we can put in the necessary 16 inches of base plus the 5 inches of top. So it's another 21 inches. So all told, we have about 13,000 yards of export coming off the site. And then to bring our building site to grade before we can put our pavement down on it or our building foundation or slab, we'll need to introduce about 17,000 yards of structural material in good quality fill just to raise the grade. So those are the numbers that we're talking about for material. It's, you know, it's a fair amount. I don't think it's that bad. I do a lot of earth removal permitting, so when I see 500,000 and 600,000 yards for a job, you know, the 16,000 yards isn't too troubling. And when it gets coordinated properly with the site contractors, there'll be pieces that'll be done at one time, pieces that'll be done at another. It shouldn't be a long, drawn-out earth removal process. I mean, it's not an earth removal per se. It's a construction project for a building. And there must be something else that
Can you address noise as well?
noise. Yeah, I looked, I mean, this is in the Business Development Overlay District. This use is an allowed use within the district. I think that the noise that's developed on the site would be noise that's normally associated with an activity such as this. I don't think it rises to the level of a noxious or obnoxious noise, although there may be some noise that comes from the site. I think that provided that we meet the noise requirement at the property line, which is 10 dB over ambient noise in the surrounding area. So if we did a noise study and we found out what the ambient noise was on the property within state guidance, we're able to be 10 dB above that. So I don't think there's any process that's taking place like a crushing plant or something of that nature that would cause a noise to rise to the level of it being a noxious or obnoxious noise. But I think that, you know, there will be some noise. So I think that the landscape buffer is intended to mitigate some of that noise. I think that the new portion will help. I think that we've sited the building in the service area in the most remote corner of the site with that noise element partly in mind. So, you know, that's how I see the noise. I mean, we are going to have backup alarms on trailers that are backing down the loading ramp. That's required. But I also think that the noise that might reflect off the building or be captured within the ramp area below can be absorbed with the 300 or so feet of plant material and vehicles rather, that are going to be in the front area of that site.
Questions from the board?
So, on the power line side, you got that buffer coming down halfway. Is there anything you can carry down the rest of the way? Because it's gonna be pretty naked down the bottom, the whole back corner.
Well, it may be naked, but there's a parking area that's shown there. We do have landscape feature. It'll be loamed and seeded. It'll be a grassed area. I think that it'll look all right from an aesthetic point of view.
Any sound's gonna be admitted by that loading dock. You've got forklifts, backup alarms. It's in that corner. It's gonna escape. There's nothing there to dampen that sound coming out of it.
Well, I don't think that it escapes to a real significant degree. You know, when those trucks back up to a loading dock, they're tight to the wall. Some of those docks, particularly in the winter months, they have enclosures that go right up to the body of the truck. The fork trucks that are inside the building, the alarm is on the rear of the fork truck. You know, and that fork truck is going inside a vehicle. So I think that really the internal operation and the noise that's generated by the equipment inside is going to be mitigated by the structure itself and the way that it's handled. I think that the noise associated with a backup alarm is something that just it can't be avoided. And I seem to recall reading someplace that some of those emergency backup alarms are not considered part of that ambient or noise generator on a site. But I could be wrong on that. But you know, when I do the earth removal permitting, and that's what we come up with, there's a tremendous amount of backup alarms in a wide open space and is very noisy. I think that when we look at what the zoning requires for landscape buffers, that must have been considered when they wrote the document. You know, we're enhancing it to a significant degree on the site, and we're meeting it every place else on the site. But that's what I think the situation is with noise.
Well, I know something that, you know, here we go, we're gonna have whole back corners totally naked. Now, what are we gonna get for reflection off the solar panels in that back corner?
You'll have to, I don't know, you might have considered that when you were approving that plan.
When we considered that, it was all woods. You know, we had 300-400 foot buffer in there.
Well, I don't think there's any noise from our site that's going to be reflected off the solar panels. First of all, they're facing, the facing south, I believe. The panel is facing south. Our backup is facing east, so, I mean, we don't have noise that's going to be directed right onto the hard surface of a solar panel that could be reflected back to the general population. And we do have that landscape buffer there. I don't know if it was required on the solar project, you know.
In the back, you got 10 feet of tall growth, you know, mature growth pine. How many of them will be left there in the first couple of windstorms we have?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can only address what zoning requires us to do. And that's what we've done. We've complied with that. I think this is a landscape feature in the rear of the site. Granted, it's a turf type landscape feature. The building, though, if we look at the building, there's foundation planting around the building. I mean, if we took the resources of putting foundation planting in, because that's what's required under zoning, and if it was site plan condition that we move that material out along the outer edge of the building, I see no issue with that. But, you know, it gets kind of, you know, I mean, I think there's a way to do it, but that's why we did what we did. I mean, I think we're compliant with landscaping, and landscaping for industrial to industrial, that's what it calls for, is 10. If it was landscaping from industrial to residential, it's 40. If it's landscaping from industrial to commercial, it's 20. So there's different buffer widths required depending upon the use that we're butting up against. We're butting up against industrial, and we're butting up against industrial on two sides.
Is there going to be any chain link fence around the back and the side?
No, there's none shown.
You're leaving 10 feet of the natural vegetation in place. And then once your construction's complete, will that be naturalizing, or is that going to be maintained as
I think that we would,
the next 10 feet, say?
well, I would defer to the board on that, but I mean, I think that it would be naturalizing myself. I don't know if they would go out to maintain it, mow it, and cut it. I don't know. I just don't see that happening, particularly against the solar use on the opposite side.
And you're going to be roughly the floor level a couple of feet above from that point? Above the surrounding ground?
Our building level is going to be, our building is 77.1, and we're like, the building will be about 6 feet. It varies. It's higher over here. It ranges from 70 to 74 right here. And then so that would be, the building would be 3 feet higher than this portion. Over here, the building is going to be floor will be 7 feet higher. And in this corner over here, you know, we're going to be shielded somewhat by the berm on the drainage basin. So our drainage basin is going to be up at elevation 73 and 74 to this point. So there'll be 4 feet exposed.
I'm just looking at the south line, yeah.
The south line here?
It's a
Same
couple.
holds true there. We have 75 here. We're basically 2 feet, we're 2 feet lower with grade than the building floor.
I was thinking it goes uphill as you went back, but it really doesn't.
Yeah, it goes uphill right here. I mean, this is where the highest point is, elevation 76 and 77, right in the center of where the height, where the building is. 75 down in here, 73, 72, and 71. So the grade slopes off to the southeast from this, say, this corner of the building.
Are we in public hearing now, George?
Yes. And the comment on the wall packs is just the appearance of them. You know, when you see them, it's like UFOs landing in the backyard. So outwardly, they don't look very, it may not cast light out to the property line, but they are certainly visible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only reason the wall packs are there is because there's man door there, and we have to provide a, lit pad and stairs that are going to come out of the building for emergency access more than anything else. So each position here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 man doors on the rear of the building, so there'd be 5 wall packs there.
Well, there's nothing really back there. I was looking at more what faces the street.
Oh, no, there's, yeah, right.
They did have some sort of a shield that would
Well,
diffuse that a little bit. I think that would be more palatable to those in the neighborhood.
yeah, I think though that we don't have any objection to doing that, to shielding it, but I think that this image right here, this image here, the street being out there, that's a pretty good representation of what you're going to see for light, and it's not very significant. I don't believe the photometrics, kind of proves that out, but we can add the level of shielding that on the light fixtures that you're comfortable with. There's, however we can maximize it, we'll plan to do that.
Any questions to the board?
I have no questions.
This is a public hearing. If anyone's coming here this evening to address this, they could come forward and identify yourself.
First off, good evening. My name's Jonathan Rogers.
Is your mic
sorry.
on? You
Do
see
I
a
gotta
green
push?
light there?
Is this better?
Maybe pull it a little closer.
Hold the mic up.
That better? Sorry about that.
I wonder if it's on.
Is it on now?
Are you getting that, Bob?
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about that. First off, my name's Jonathan Rogers. I own 49 and 47 Charlotte Furnace Road, on the south side of the property in question, on the other side of the power lines. I brought up some points last meeting we had about the noise, about the lights, traffic from this proposed new plan. With that, I provided a letter to your office this morning with many of the signatures of those in the neighborhood on Accoaxet, Bagansett, Pekingese, Charlotte Furnace Road, with about 45 signatures from about 30 addresses, with the same concerns, as well as some additional ones that came up along with with the added traffic having, walkable roads. I don't know if you guys have been down Charlotte Furnace Road lately. It's a very busy road. You're taking your life in your own hands when you're walking down there. And it is a very residential neighborhood. I mean, Master Millworks is the only commercial property in that vicinity. I know there's Beaton's up the road a little bit, and I know it's a business overlay. But in that sense, there is a lot of families and a lot of people in that area. So like I said, I dropped off a letter. I don't know if you guys have had the chance to read it, just outlining my points. But like I said, the noise and the buffering of light would be a top priority for myself and many of the other people in the neighborhood. And I do feel that the landscaping buffer, it's only 10 feet of high pine trees right now. Like Mike said, though, with the good windstorm, those are probably going to come down in that area. And then the landscaping is mostly probably going to be grass and short shrubs. So that's not really going to block any tractor-trailer noise and the loud bangs coming from backing into a loading dock and, the backup alarms and that sort of thing. I know you said you don't find it would be obnoxious, but I think that's up to the person to decide, especially those that live directly in the neighborhood and across the street that are directly affected.
There is a lot of scrub oak along that property line. I checked it out, but the leaves fall off, so you won't have much in the spring. The winter. Thank you. That,
Hello, my name's Wayne Gonsalves, and I've been living in the neighborhood for 35 years. I know this project's already in the works, so it's not a whole lot that's, can be changed. But one of my concerns is that Charlotte Furnace Road, a lot of people walk along that road, want to ride their bikes, walk their dogs. You're adding a lot of additional traffic that hasn't been there in the past. Trucks going up the road. They say 125, but you don't have, in that proposal, you don't have the growers' trucks, beaten trucks, just people crossing through that road from Plymouth. They fly down the road. You got to turn off of Echo-Axic Lane to get onto Charlotte, and you have to watch each way because people are barreling down there. So there's a lot more traffic. I really don't understand, this industrial thing. It's right smack dab in the residential. Going to add 3 more housings on the opposite side. On either side, new housings are going up, and this is like an oddball thing, just sitting in a main residential area. Like I said, it's already there, but I just don't. I'm down in the end, so I don't get probably the noise or whatever that the people that are living right across from there, or the lighting. But it's definitely, the lights were up there back years ago. It would be pitch black, at nighttime. Now it's lit up. He says it's not much light, but it's lit up at night. Like I say, I'm down, so the light doesn't bother me so much, but I know my neighbors probably bothers them. But I'm just wondering what the town will do as far as the roads thing. I mean, was there any consideration to expand the road, put sidewalks in, or do something to that main drag for the businesses? Because now you've increased the traffic. Just to get out of Charlotte Furnace Road now at Cumberland, you can sit there for 10 minutes trying to get out. And there's a lot of accidents that's happened down there because people pull out, they don't see the other person. I don't know what the accident rate is, but I purposely drive slow when I come up that road because there's a lot of people be right on my butt because they're just flying through, and I'll go 30 miles an hour just to make them slow down. It's kind of my take on it.
Thank you.
I don't know anybody's, but thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Bark. I live at 58 Charlotte Furnace. Totally respect the fact that we do have this business here that has every right to be there. But we are primarily a residential area, including the outskirts of neighborhoods. It's a very respectful area. It's quiet. People take care of their properties. They are very considerate in terms of loud parties and things. It's just a very quiet family neighborhood. And I am hoping that our business neighbor will be as considerate. We do have a lot of concerns, especially regarding the light and the sound. We're really concerned about that along the power lines with removing that vegetation. The sound is already, I'm sure in terms of legalities, it's all meeting business criteria. I have no doubt of that. But it is impacting. We can hear the impact of the trucks when they back up and they're hitting the back loads. there is noise and the lights, it's like it's lit up like it's Christmas. And I do fear mostly, the sound barrier being lost with those trees being removed along the power lines. So I hope we can give that some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Sylvia. I live at 66 Charlotte Furnace Road, right across the street. And this is just too much of a big thing. It's a big, big building. We have enough noise from what we have going in already. We have trucks coming in and out. We have trucks coming down, going down Echo Exit, and then back, the trucks will go back down Echo Exit and back across the street to go into Master Millwork, backing up. That's what they currently do. There's too much noise as it is. I just think it's too much of a building. It's too big. They don't have enough room to turn around. I really don't think that they have enough space for the road. I don't think it's going to be sufficient. If they can't make the road now, they can't go in. How are they going to make that turn? Still not going to. And there's nothing across from the house across from them. They're going to be going into their yard. They were supposed to originally leave a substantial buffer. It's not a substantial buffer. If you've gone down there, and I know you guys have, you know that there's not much in the way of plantings. And when you take down the big pine trees and you replace it with the smaller spruce pine that they have currently, it's not adequate at all. There's not enough sound buffer, and when they clear cut the back end, there's gonna be more sound than it currently is. We're gonna have more traffic, people coming in and out from there every day, at least twice a day. Employees, at least twice a day. We're gonna have 50 more employees. That's 50 times 2. Then for lunches, then we have the FedEx and UPS trucks coming. Are those going to be coming in the front of the building with the administrative side, or are those going to be going down the new road? They took down too many trees the last time. They weren't supposed to. They did. They didn't do the building the way that they were going to do. It was not correct, according to the building inspector. They were supposed to do something for me and for my neighbor across the street because we were right facing them. They didn't do anything. I mean, I have my septic tanks in the front yard, so if you want to put in walkways, you're going to be cutting into my lawn. It's going to be coming into it's going to be a short spot in between my septic tanks and the driveways, the walkways. They originally told us they were going to have tractor trailers, or they might be like once or twice. They're only going to have box trucks. They have tractor trailers all the time, multiple times a day, in addition to box trucks, FedEx trucks. We hear beeping from people that are coming flying down the road when the trucks are backing in or going into the building, into the driveway now. Trash. I don't think one dumpster is gonna be sufficient because they have trash that blows out and goes down their driveway over into the walkway, to the road, into the lawns across. The trash, also, the trash truck comes between 2 and 4 in the morning to unload. So you hear bang. Since the road has been cut up with, for the gas and the water, it still is not right, the road. I constantly hear, when trucks are coming through quickly, I hear bang, bang, bang when they go over the thing, and they've done it several times. They've repaved that strip several times, and it's still not right. So now we're gonna rip it up again. We have other houses that are coming in, so you're gonna have more traffic from them too. It's just, that should have never happened. It should have never gone in. And now they want to expand. I don't think they should be able to expand, unfortunately, because it's just too small of an area, and it is in the residential area. I mean, I see a lot from my end, in front of front of my house. Looking out my windows, I see a lot of the building, the cars, things going in and out, and it's not really a buffer for the noise. Any of the land around that, or the vegetation that is currently there, it's going to get cut down. You're going to put new trees in that are going to be smaller, and they're going to take a long time to grow, if they are going to grow, to mitigate that noise. There is a lot of idling also on that road with those trucks. They do come in. There have been times where they have come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they sit there and they idle. It's not going to open up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's a lot of problems with that. And this is just going to get bigger, and it's going to increase the traffic, it's going to increase the truck noise. It's a business overlay in the residential area. You're overlaying the residents. You're just putting too much on the residents for that area.
Ma'am, how often do the trash trucks come in the middle of the night?
A couple of times a week,
Every week? How long has
Yes.
that been going on?
forever, since they moved in. In fact, the meeting that you had the last time on the 10th, was it, that you met? 4 o'clock in the morning, they had the tractor trailer come, and the dumpster come.
It's been at 2 in the morning, though, also?
2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Yeah, it's,
I think that's an enforcement issue. I don't think there's any, I think that's a violation of a bylaw to be
that's not a
doing that.
violation?
I think it is a violation of a bylaw to be doing that type of activity that time of day, but that seems like that would be an enforcement issue.
So, I guess that's pretty much, it's just the traffic, the noise, the trucks, the constant, and when they're supposed to, are they gonna do multiple shifts in this new building?
They're not proposing any, no.
So it's just gonna be the existing hours, no weekends?
I think that the same conditions that were put into place with the original building, I believe that they allowed work on Saturdays. I'll tell you in a minute.
I thought it was Monday through Friday, but. it's too much. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you. It does seem that the buffering and the vegetation in front of the existing building either didn't grow or wasn't sufficient. It doesn't seem like anything was done there.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that.
I can't without going back to the other site plan. It just doesn't seem like we have anything there.
Well, I think that a condition that an inspection take place at the appropriate time frame with vegetation and, you know, replant. And I think you had that in your original decision, that, you know, you do inspect the vegetation, and whatever dies within a 2-year time frame is replaced. So I think that's what would have to happen to ensure that we get a solid stand of vegetation growing.
Hi, my name is Fred Reynolds, and we live at 12 Aquax, and my wife Sue is also here with me. And we've been here a few times over the years, familiar faces and familiar issues. And one of the issues in particular is the traffic study issues. We've talked about this a few times. There's very little validity to any traffic studies that have been contracted out. When Master Millwright first built their facility, they had 5 employees. They told us they had plans at the time of hiring a couple of more. And they actually argued with Charlie here that they didn't need all that parking, that he forced them, for you guys to vote on, to accommodate 25 odd vehicles or how many spaces that currently exist over there. So that was something that was forced. You guys forced the owner's hand to do that. They had no intention of doing that. They told us they had 5. Maybe they would hire a couple more people. The other day I was by there. Now, traffic studies, if you base that on 5 to 7 people, the other day I was by there was 21 cars parked in front of that place. That's 200% more than what the initial traffic studies indicated. So that's why I say your traffic study information is not valid. If you base current traffic studies on the previous traffic studies, it's even skewed more. It won't even be close. So if you plan on putting another 50 vehicles a day on Charlotte Furnace Road, anybody can do the math. 2 times up and down the road is 100 a day, times 5, 500 a week. 2,000 more vehicles a month. Charlotte Furnace was never designed to handle that. It's a country lane. It's a small little road. Put another 1,000 vehicles a month on that roadway is a travesty, in plain English. And if you vote to approve that, I try to always be polite when I come here, but if you vote to approve that, I'm going to be the first one standing here pointing the finger when somebody gets killed on that roadway. There's no need for this to happen. You can say no. The master plan says you can say no. The town warrant establishing the BDOT says you can say no. Very easily, this should take maybe, on a bad day, maybe it should take you guys 3 minutes to think about this and then vote no, in plain English. Because you're going to make a mistake, and somebody's going to pay. It's more and more dangerous out there all the time. There's no sidewalks, there's no streetlights, there's no accommodations. You've authorized residential homes to go in out there? 3 plus 10 more, 13? How many children riding bicycles? How many children jeopardizing their lives? How many moms or dads walking with their children down that street? You're asking for a calamity. And it won't be the residents' fault. It's going to be your fault. Because if you make this decision, it's your fault. It lays on your hands. So that's number one issue, is the traffic studies to me. They've always been invalid. There's never been a traffic study handed into this planning board that's ever been truthful. Not one. Every one I've talked with you guys about. For the almost 20 years now, I've been coming here over the BDOT issues. Even before the BDOT was a BDOT. It was going to be a residential development, if you remember very well. They were going to put 200, 300, 400 homes out there. Then when the BDOT became the BDOT, there was an agreement made between the citizenry, selectmen, planning board, and zoning board, saying they would not use access to those frontage lots off Charlotte Furnace Road. All access would be from roadways built in through the rear of the parcels. I have that in writing right here. I have proof of your words, their words, and everybody's words. They promised that to us. They said they would never gain access to those parcels of land from Charlotte Furnace. So when you allowed the fertilizer repackaging facility to go in down on the Carver line, I came here and told you were making a mistake. But you voted on it anyway. When you started to do this millwright planning, I came here and said you're making a mistake. But you voted on it anyway. How much farther are we going to go with this before you're going to finally say no? You held up a project at the golf course, a couple of residences for what, 3 years? And it wasn't nearly as dangerous as this situation that's being created. So, I say it makes my blood boil a little bit because I have been coming here in a few more years, it'll be 20 years I've been coming here talking to you guys. Not once have you ever said no. Not once. And like I say, basically the master plan for this town and this community, the brand new master plan says no. That facility should never be there in a residential neighborhood. It shouldn't exist out there. But it was approved before because the old master plan had supposedly expired. I came here and complained about it. I had it all, and I still have it. I have copies of the old master plan. And I was told from that table that the master plan had expired, so it does not apply. Doesn't apply. How can something not apply? I mean, it's in writing. I have copies of it. It had gone past its 10-year cycle. It was time for it to be renewed, but that doesn't mean it doesn't apply. So the master plan, in my mind, the basic premise tells you guys to do no harm. That's what the master plan really says. Don't do any harm, right? If you do anything that creates harm for the citizenry, then you're making a huge mistake. So you could get into all the details, the 100 and some odd pages of the master plan. We could go line item by line item. There's at least 20 line items in there that says you should say no. At least 20. So we can keep going on with that, but I think I've made my point as far as that's concerned. And like I said, the original master millwright proposal was for the existing facility, office space, and manufacturing, and 7 employees. What's happened to that? Doesn't anybody ever police any of this thing? How did it get to 21 cars in the parking lot? They promised you guys that they would never have that happen. I sat right here and heard them promise you. They also promised you that they never had customers come to their facilities, so they would never need that many parking spaces. All you gotta do is go back and listen to the minutes to your meetings. All of this is quote unquote. I'm not making any of this up. For those of you that were here, you remember my words and you remember their words. They promised those things to us. And they promised if they put any additions on that facility, it was going to be purely for storage. Purely for storage. That was back when you originally approved that facility. So you said, okay, well, 7 employees, 14 cars a day, a couple of delivery trucks, no big deal, right? No harm, no foul. It's a residential neighborhood. You don't live there. I don't know if any of you live there. I know Mr. Baptiste lives in the neighborhood. He knows a little bit about what I'm talking about, but obviously he has a job to do here. But I think it's your job to represent us, the citizenry. I really do believe that. And like I say, I've tried to be polite in the past, but if you can't represent the citizenry, it's time for you to get the hell out of here. It's time to step down. Let somebody else come in that will represent us. We're the people that pay the bill. Some of us have lived there 20, 30, 40 years. And now to have this happen, it's a travesty. That's all I can say. It really is. And if it was happening across the street from your house, you'd know it's a travesty. It's happening across the street from your house, you'd feel the same way. Maybe you'd feel worse than me. Maybe you'd really be angry about this thing. Maybe ready to, give somebody a black eye because this thing should never have happened to begin with. right? Like I said, the master plan said, no, you don't build those facilities. When the town warrant was voted on, the town warrant said no access from Charlotte Furnace Road. None. I have it right here in writing, right in this pile. But you guys go ahead and say yes. How is that possible? Think about that for a minute. So, the only other thing that I have is the residential neighborhood issues as far as the traffic and the unsafe situation that's being created and how dangerous it can be for anybody who lives in that area. Some days I pull out on the Charlotte Furnace, and because of the increase in traffic, just general increase, people going back and forth to Carver, Plymouth, whatever, Charlotte Furnace Road has become a racetrack. And I know that happens. I'm a little bit lead-footed myself. So they come buzzing down through there, and there's no residences, and then all of a sudden they're right on top of you when they come around by Kelly's house on the corner of Charlotte Furnace. I don't know how many times I've had people jacking up their brakes to avoid hitting me from pulling out, because you can't see around that little bend. There's just enough of a blind spot there where you got to stick your nose out to be able to see. So if something could be done about that, that would be appreciated. I mean, that's something that we could say as a group. It would help. It would help a little bit. But the main issue is, like I say, the more traffic you had to the roadway, the worse the situation. It's not rocket science. We don't have to be brilliant people to figure this out. You add more traffic, you're going to have more issues, right? Pretty simple. One of the things I do have is I have an old note I just was showing Jonathan, because I'm here really to support him and Kelly. They're the people that live right on Charlotte Furnace or are going to build. We live 450, 600 feet off of the roadway. So it's not right in our, not right in our bedroom, so to speak, like it is in Kelly's case. But I have an article here from January 2016. And this was Master Millworks, this is a quote, Master Millworks consulting engineer Timothy Bennett of Green Seal Engineering said that after receiving information from town officials, the proposed two-story building and the building was to be moved back because we complained it was too close to the street originally. Originally, they were going to go with traditional residential guidelines, which is 20-foot setback. And we complained about that because of Kelly's house being right there. And we said, if you push it back a little bit, maybe we can live with it. And if you don't have lights on all night long, and they promised us, they said, oh, we won't do that. We'll have our lights on a timer. I drove by there the other night, 12:30 in the morning, lit up like a shopping mall. Again, we were promised. These are not good neighbors when they do this crap to us. We were promised that wouldn't happen. So that's just one of the issues. But the rest of this article, the proposed setback would accommodate the inquiries by the citizens who lived on the street. But the next paragraph is of interest. Bennett said, quote, any future expansion would add buildings only for storage space to the existing facility, unquote. This is a promise in writing in the newspaper that they were not going to add any more, like 40 more cars, 20 more employees, 30 more employees. Right here. Bennett said future expansion would add buildings only for storage space. Not making this up. So, and I could go on. I got a lot of them because I kept them all over the years. At one time I was sick and I was laid up for a couple of years and I kind of lost my folders. But I have them all now going all the way back to 2003. And when I start reading them, it bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot because no one can say that these issues haven't been brought to your attention. You can't play dumb on this. So if I said anything that makes any impact and helps Jonathan out with his abutting issue, because we're not in a butter, so legally we don't have a right to even complain, right, other than with the freedom of speech and that you allow us to speak. Because theoretically, because we're not in a butter, we don't have a right to gripe. But Jonathan does, and Kelly does, and the people who live right there do have a right, and they're going to have to live with your decisions for a lot of years. So I as a neighbor, trying to be a good neighbor, am here to support them. And if you guys can do something to help them out, then I'll look at you with a new set of eyes. If you can't do anything to help them out, I'm going to look at you as some of the most pathetic people in Wareham. And those are my words.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm unfamiliar with the issue you brought up about no access off of Charlotte Furnace Road.
That's correct.
I don't, first I've ever heard of this. Can you give me
Mr.
some more-
Tropiano and Ms. Pillsbury, who's since passed, sat at this table in front of this planning board with representatives from Makepeace when the BDOD was created. And the issue at the time was 2,000 jobs for the town of Wareham. $3 to $4 million a year in tax revenue. What a wonderful concept. It was hard to find fault with that. So we brought up the issue, myself in particular and another fellow. There was only two of us in the meeting that time. I don't know where the rest of my neighbors were, but they were asleep, I guess. We brought up the issue of 2,000 cars on Charlotte Furnace Road. How the hell are you going to do that? It's impossible. If they all tried to stream in there in the morning based on 20 foot per car, it's only a little over a mile to the town line.
I get
You'd
that.
have a string of cars for 5 miles long, coming and going, the beginning of the day and the end of the day.
my
So Mary Jane Pillsbury and Mr. Tropiano said in their words that that would never happen.
And
That
their
they would build access
And
to,
their roles at this time were what?
they were in a select body, and they were speaking on behalf of Makepeace Corporation to own the land. So they were acting as advocates for Makepeace Corporation. The words that came out of their mouth was that they would never do that. That what they would do is they would build an access road off the end of 195, off the interchange, to access all the streets in the BDOD, where these 2,000 jobs were going to exist. So us as the citizens of Wareham, we heard this and we said, well, hey, problem solved. They're going to build their own roadway in there. So it's not going to put a big burden on. And any of the facilities that would back up to Charlotte Furnace or Tohonet, your access to them would be from roadways within the BDOD. So a buffer would remain there. So the only thing you might see when through the trees a little bit is the backside of a building that was fairly close to the roadway. You might see something like that. That's all you would see.
These were verbal words that were spoken but not documented
No, fully documented,
in
fully documented.
in the zoning laws?
In the town warrant voted on by the town of Wareham and all the citizenry of Wareham. Got it right here. You want to see it?
I'd love to see it.
I'd like to see that too.
Pardon me?
I'd like to see it too.
Hold on one second. I haven't looked it up for a while here. I had to dig it out. Like I say, this goes back to 2000. This town warrant was voted on by a town meeting, April 28th, 2003. So I say 17 years ago. All right, let me see. If you got a minute, I will find it for you. I really apologize. If someone else wants to speak, they could speak for a minute. I'll take a seat and I'll dig it out for you. Unless you have some other questions. I do have it here.
If not, you can always find it and forward it to us, so.
I do have it because I hadn't looked at this stuff for ages. until Jonathan came knocking on doors the other day, so I had to dig this stuff out, and I started to go through it, and I says, holy crap, has it really been 17 years? Yeah, hard to believe, huh? Hard to believe for you, I'm sure you guys, it hasn't been like front page controversial issues, except for cases where, when the Standard Times was really a big newspaper, they used to write big articles, and I have several big Standard Times articles, referencing the BDOT at the time, because originally, if you remember, they were going to put residential subdivision out there. And the only reason they stopped it was in 2008, the real estate market, the bottom fell out of it. So Makepeace made a good business decision and said, listen, smart people, they said, listen, this is never going to fly. We're never going to be able to build enough houses out there to make it worthwhile. Let's do something else. And that's when the BDOT became front page news. Was there something else you wanted to say?
No,
I'm sorry.
Question, Richard?
Pardon me?
What was your question?
I'd like to, I don't anticipate voting on this issue tonight, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to do his research and come back and show us that, because that's a pretty significant statement.
Bill?
Well, I mean, just, the zoning is the zoning and the bylaw is the bylaw. The history behind it is, unfortunately, it's relatively immaterial at this point because the citizenry voted, town meeting voted on the bylaw, and the BDOT bylaw is the rule. So the way it stands today is the document in the zoning bylaw. I think the history is great. I had the benefit of working with them in 2003 on many of the things that that Mr. Reynolds is talking about now. So, but all I say is I reflect back to the zoning. That's the rule book. That's what's in play today. And I think that,
I'm reading it right now.
yeah, I mean, I just read where it was, as far as the BDOT, it was a town meeting, April 28, 2003, when they amended the zoning bylaw to include the business overlay development district. So that's when it happened in 2003, April 28th town meeting. I mean, it's in the zoning bylaw. That's what I'm reading out of now. So whatever it said is what it said. Whatever led up to the decision-making is what led up to the decision-making. But in the final analysis, I believe the bylaw, as it stands today, is the document that we have to be governed by.
And going back that time period, I think the original intention was, by everyone, was that Charlotte Furnace Road would be residential,
That's right.
with possibly a connecting road to the business park. That's my recollection, but, and a traffic light at Charlotte Furnace and Cranberry Highway. Like I say, if you find what you're looking for, if you could
Yeah, I'll dig it out.
provide copies to the board, that'd be great.
It's one of those issues where I did find it this afternoon. And I'd actually highlighted it in yellow, but for some reason I have too much crap. I have too much crap here, and it's so unorganized. And believe it or not, once upon a time I was probably so organized it would drive you freaking crazy. But because I'm retired now, I'm allowed to do this. So, if you have any other questions, be happy to try to answer them.
I'm good.
And thank you for your time.
My name is Benjamin Sylvia. I live right across the road from Master Millworks. I'm just going to reiterate what's pretty much already been said. I mean, the sound, the lighting, and then the traffic. So, like we already discussed, the sound, the trucks coming in 2 in the morning, there's no need for that. The trucks, dumpsters being emptied at that time, it's ridiculous. They say that they don't need any more dumpsters, but they can't keep a hold of their trash already. Their trash is blowing into our yard, it's blowing into our neighbor's yard across Echo Exit. Their lights are on 24/7. You can see them through the blinds. Right on the road too, right next to their sign. They didn't adequately put the buffer, like they said they were gonna plant trees. They didn't do any of that. They put little 6-inch shrubs right next to the sign, which, doesn't do anything. And like you said before, this storm tears down the trees, so that degrades the buffer. So, I mean, that 10-foot buffer is really not gonna be there, really. And then the traffic, it's ridiculous. Like everybody's been saying, everybody comes barreling down the road from Carver. When those tractor trailers come in now, they pull into Acco exit and they back up across the road. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's no need for that. That's all I have to say about that.
And that's precisely the reason why the service entrance is designed the way it is on the plan. There's no opportunity to turn down a side street. There's plenty of room in the design to accommodate the WB 53 truck traffic that may be introduced to the site. And there's plenty of circulation space on the site for those vehicles to back up into enter the loading docks. I mean, that's, you know, you need to remember, my guys were here when the original meeting was taking place. I heard it every morning when we were doing Bayside Agricultural. And when we were asked to do this work, the guys in the office said, you know, you really should take a second thought about it. It's, you know, the neighbors. And I said, we'll just do a better job. That's all we'll do. We'll plan it better, we'll do it better, we'll present it better. And that's what I believe strongly that that's exactly what we've done. I mean, you have a far better facility designed to go on this site than what exists there today, or what was planned originally. And I think it works. I think it works fine. Took a lot of effort to get it to the point that it's at today, but you know, we considered all the comments that were made with respect to traffic and how we're going to deal with it. And I think that we've mitigated the noise, we've mitigated the traffic. The trash is a very simple thing to deal with in a condition. I mean, trash gets picked up when you pick up the phone and you call the disposal company to pick up your dumpster. They don't come on a pre-scheduled basis, they come when they're called. So, I mean, you know, do you mandate twice a day pickup? Do you mandate that? That's fine. Or do you mandate them calling for trash pickup, you know, on a day-to-day basis? But those things, I think, are readily mitigated. As far as trucks, you know, the bumps on the road, you know, sure, those are trench patches. We know what they're all about. This service entrance now, they don't have an opportunity to drive over those things. They don't have an opportunity to create that noise. You know, this is selected for a very precise reason. You know, and I think it's a solution to many of the issues that we've talked about or heard about tonight. I think it's a well thought out plan. I think it's a good plan.
I kind of disagree with the assessment about trash. You just call on the phone. I work in an industrial park. I'm the facility manager down for Edge Tech. And I set up the dumpster pickups. And they come on a particular day, either Wednesday or Thursday. They come at a certain time, basically every time. The only time is if you overload your dumpster, that you have to call them, that they come on an off appointment time. So to say that you have to make a call, I think that's bullshit.
In any event, they shouldn't be coming between 2 and 4 in the morning.
Right.
If that's accurate.
Because the
That's
dumpsters,
fixable.
you know, even when they come to my facility during the day, they have to bang that thing off the truck to get the stuff out of the dumpster. So it's like bam, 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 and it goes through the whole building. So, you know, for the people that live right across the street, I can just imagine, you know, hearing them, especially at all hours of the morning. I haven't witnessed it, but, you know, to say that you just make a phone call and they come, it's not how it's set up.
I'm back, the pain in your butt. I found two of the original pieces of documentation. This one is, and I can give you this, I think I have other copies of this. This one is 4/10/2003. And this one refers to many issues associated with the BDOT, but in particular, I've highlighted a little piece here that residents attending an informational hearing on the proposal last night, which obviously was the night before, wanted to know about the increased traffic on Tohonet and Charlotte Furnace roads, and also inquired about the status of the improvements to the 495, 195 interchange, and also how tall the office buildings in the park would be. They also wanted to know if the company has received any offers yet for parcels of land, some of the other questions that we asked about. They also inquired about traffic issues for somewhere around, now I was off, I said 2,000. The original estimates were Makepeace Plan's attempt to implement a zoning change at the time. This is before the VDOT was voted on. They wanted to change the property to a BDOT. It would create 4,000 to 6,000 high-paying jobs in a high-tech office park environment with the potential for $4 million in annual revenue for the town of Wareham in the form of taxes.
Excuse me, sir, but the question was about the access from non-office Charlotte Furnace Road.
Well, that's what this inquiry was about. We were asking, when we went back to the meeting, we were asking about how far they had gone forward with putting a plan together for the interchange. Because the original proposal to us, we were told that there would not be access off Charlotte Furnace. The access would be off of the end of 195. That's what we were told. And that's what this verifies, that we were asking that question, and was there any progress on that proposal? The second part of it is the town warrant itself. The town warrant that was voted on by the public, and this is the part that you wanted to see, and I'm going to give this to you as soon as I get done reading it. For the people that weren't around back then, this is what we all voted on. We went to town meeting, and we created the BDOT. The viability of the BDOT relies on the redesign of the 195, 495, Route 25 interchange to include an off-ramp to access the property. This off-ramp will provide the kind of direct access to the property necessary for businesses to locate in the park. It is understood that local roads will not be able to provide the kind of access necessary to sustain the type of business development proposal. The selectmen voted in favor of this, Article 6. I'll give you that. Since you were around at that time. For anybody else who has amnesia, I just forgot about that. I don't have amnesia. I can remember these things. It takes me a little while sometimes to dig them out, but I was there, I was here, I voted, and there it is in his hands in writing. So you can do with it as you may, but that was a promise made to us, the citizenry of Wareham, and that's why we voted yes on that town warrant, because we were promised that that was going to happen.
That's not what this says.
Yes, that's part of the town warrant.
That does not, what this says
It
is...
says the
May I-
viability.
May I?
It says the viability. You know what the word viability means? It's very clear.
It doesn't say
It
promise.
says
sir.
that the park is not viable without access roads.
Okay.
That whole vote was based on the BDOT, establishing the BDOT. And that says the viability of the proposal. So I know English. I went to school. I know what the word viability means. I shouldn't have to explain it to you guys. Right?
Can I answer now?
Sure, go ahead.
My point I'm trying to make is that paragraph says that the success or failure of the BDOT will depend upon doing that access road.
No, it says the viability of this proposal. You didn't read it thoroughly. Am I correct or am I incorrect? You got it in your hands.
Difference does it make?
I think Rich makes a good point. I think there's viability and success are one and the same.
Selectmen stood up in front of us and promised us that they would not build that BDOT without building an access road, and that's what that refers to.
But that's not what it says.
So the word viability doesn't mean viability.
You're stating that this paragraph says in English.
That's not just a paragraph. That's a section of the warrant, town warrant.
I understand. It tells you how big it's gonna be, what they expect the benefits are gonna be,
That's right.
and the viability of it relies on it.
There you go.
But it doesn't say that.
In other words, this park is not viable unless you build the access road.
Right.
Is that what it says?
And looking at the property as it sits right now, I used to live right off of Tohonet Road myself. I know the piece of property over on Farm to Market,
Yep.
what their plans were. And it died on the vine. Didn't go anywhere. There is no park there.
I agree with the statement also, that VDOT has
So
not
you're
approved
saying
it.
that the BDOT doesn't exist anymore?
We're wandering kind of far afield here now.
So you're saying that the BDOT was trashed, that whole concept was trashed? Was the town allowed to vote on trashing it? Did you guys vote on trashing that concept?
The property owner made the decision on what they were going to build, not us.
But there was a commitment made when the town warrant was voted on, right in front of the town citizenry. You're saying that he can just say, the property owner can say, no more? Is it that simple? If I had put a set of plans in front of you guys, and then all of a sudden I change my mind, all I can just say, okay, I've changed my mind. Is that easy? I've said in a lot of these planning board meetings, I've never seen you treat anybody that easily.
We act on what is presented to us under the existing bylaw. Whether somebody makes a decision what to do or not to do on their property is not our decision.
Like I said earlier, I came here to support Jonathan because he's going to be in a butter, and Kelly, she is in a butter.
And we
And
appreciate
the
what
word
the
viable,
neighborhood
if
is.
something's viable, I'm going to go home, I'm going to look that word up in the dictionary, because I thought I understood it, but now I've had you tell me I don't understand what the word means. You told me I don't understand what the word means, so I guess I got to
I did
look it
not
up.
use those words.
It says so in that paperwork right there I gave to you. Let's go. Viability of this proposal is what it's saying.
You just accused me of telling you that I don't believe you know what the word means, and I never said any such thing.
Well, you indicated that.
You interpreted
I think we're
Yeah, exactly.
not getting
Let's
anywhere.
move it on.
Yeah, that's, you
We're
know
just
something?
going downhill
You know
from
something?
here.
You're right. You're right. It's been a lot of years of getting nowhere. A lot of years of destroying a residential neighborhood with tin can buildings. There's 3 out there now. How many more are we going to get? How many more are you going to approve? The master plan says no. You don't do that to a residential neighborhood. It's your master plan. Was that a facade? For 2 years, you put this whole thing together with meetings and inviting people for their input and all that. What was that? You created this brand-new master plan that says that's no. You're not going to do that to the community. And now you just ignore it. Well, like I say, what was those 2 years all about? Building a brand-new master plan.
I get your point, but we're wandering away from the site plan that's in front of us now.
Well, that's your opinion. Because again, you don't live out there. We're not wandering away from anything. We live there. We have to deal with this every day. So, thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
With the new information, I just had a couple additional questions for you, Bill, about the traffic study that you did.
I didn't, just for the record, I did not do a traffic
No,
study.
I said you mentioned it. That's not saying you did it. I was just wondering when that was dated. If you had an idea when that was dated, if that was 20 years ago.
I read the reference to the traffic study on the decision that was made on the original BDOT. That's where my information came from relative to traffic. The traffic study that was done by Vinas and Associates.
So with that said, you're saying that that traffic study was done on Charlotte Furnace Road before Master Millworks went in, before Beaton's went in, before Progressive Growers went in, and that's what you're basing your traffic analysis on today?
I did not do a traffic analysis. We talked about how many vehicle trips per day were going to the site. It's not a traffic analysis.
So your estimation was based off of that, correct?
My estimation was based on the number of employees that would be working at the facility and the number of truck deliveries that I was told would come to the site per day.
That's additional to what's already there that hasn't been accounted for.
We're talking about what the project will consist of when it's completed. We're talking the full project.
You're talking about additional, you're not talking about what is actually happening currently now. That's fine. And then you said the access road is 36 feet wide, is it original? And if they're having trouble making a right-hand turn with tractor trailers in there now, that they have to go down Acco exit, how much wider is the new truck traffic road, access road going to be? Because otherwise they're gonna run into the same issue, that they're gonna have to kind of
Well,
back in.
the issue now would be they have place to go in, turn, and then back to the ramp. They won't have to go across the street or down. Is that accurate?
The radius and the width of the road, the way we've shown it on the plan, is adequate to handle the turning movements of a WB 53 tractor trailer.
That's without going across the street like they were concerned of, yeah.
So,
Joyce,
any comments from Charlie? Yes, sir.
if I may,
Go.
taking some notes as people were speaking and then looking back at the special permit that was issued before, there's some information in there that perhaps would be helpful to the board going forward here. The hours of operation that were approved in that special permit was 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and if desired, 7 a.m. to noon on Saturday. Those were the hours of operation that were allowed. It says that vehicles shall not leave engines running when parked on the site. I heard somebody suggest that they were doing that. In doing that, that would be a violation of the special permit. I fail to see why they really need to make any kind of a turn on Echo exit, and with what has been presented, I agree with Mr. Madden that the width of the road and the turning radii in the site itself should be sufficient to accommodate that, so they shouldn't have that much of an issue. With respect to the sound, there's a way of measuring what the ambient sound is right now at the site and in the surrounding area. There are meters that people use all the time to measure ambient sound. There's no reason why you couldn't conduct a study for an ambient sound during the daytime, during any nighttime hours that you wish, establish what those levels are, and as a part of your approval process, you could, in my opinion, restrict the levels of noise that come out of that site as nothing greater than what you see today. Or if you see that it is excessive, that it be reduced in some way. One of the things that I did notice, and it was mentioned about sound coming off the face of the building and heading in a southerly direction where the tree landscaping is so narrow, there's no reason why that 10-foot buffer in that area, and it amounts to probably, excuse me, almost 200 feet. If a solid stockade-type fence, and this could be a decorative stockade-type fence, be run along that, there's nothing to prevent the parking that they propose there, and it would add a little bit more of a buffer, a sound barrier buffer to anything that's coming out of the project from that location. With respect to the trench cuts, if that's a problem, they're going to have to file for a new trench cut anyway in order to make the cut for the new water main. So there's no reason why that existing trench cut, if it needs to be updated, improved, maybe re-backfilled, or maybe it needs to have infrared exposure done to the asphalt to make it smooth, no reason why that can't be done either. As far as trash trucks are concerned, you have it within your authorization and special permit authorization to restrict the times when trash vehicles can come in to pick up those dumpsters. And I believe it is an enforcement issue, but if it becomes a part of the special permit, it's even more enforceable, because then you could give the letter to the building inspector and he could walk in and say, you're in violation of your special permit. So I just offer those as opportunities to maybe address to some limit or some extent some of the issues that have been brought up by the neighbors. The landscaping plan, I've already mentioned the fence. Lighting on timers certainly could be something that could be done, so you don't have brilliant light throughout the nighttime hours. If they're beyond their working hours, something for security is certainly adequate, but you don't need to light the whole nighttime sky in order to do that. So, just some things that I offer for your consideration.
Anything, any comments or questions?
Well, I think what I'm hearing from the neighborhood is they're looking, Master Millwork is asking to expand their business, and, you know, they've grown based on what's happened over the last 20 years. I don't know how long they've been there, I'm new to town. But they've grown substantially from their, my mic's on. Hello? They've grown, obviously, successfully, quite a bit over the years. And with an expansion, they're anticipating more growth. So traffic is going to increase, employees are going to increase. And looking at that road, Google Earth and that street level, I understand the concerns of the neighbors. To increase tractor-trailer traffic on that road is not a good thing, much less all the additional employees. But the reality of it is it's an existing business on a road with a curb cut. To halt the project on that merit alone doesn't seem reasonable. But what does seem reasonable is to be a better neighbor, to take all the extra steps that they're asking for noise mitigation, for light mitigation, an extra couple 100 feet of landscaping along that road to protect the folks that are on the opposite side of the right-of-way. For a project of this size, doesn't seem like a very big request. So, that's the way I look at it, is if you're asking them to I don't want to say put up with, because I don't think that's the right phrase, but if they're asking them to accommodate your wishes to expand this business, I would think that it's got to be reciprocal, and we need to look at being a good neighbor for them as well, and doing the most that we can do under reasonable requests. So, that's it.
Speaking for Master Millworks, I don't see where a condition such as that in a special permit would be overwhelmingly problematic at all. I mean, you know, that's what site plan review is all about, is how are we going to best fit this site into its surrounding. And if it's in your judgment, collective judgment, that you feel that those are the types of things that help mitigate potential problems, then by all means, I think that you have that ability to condition the project accordingly. And I mean, you know, there's not much disputing that. I would not dispute it myself. I mean, I think everything you stated is reasonable.
What would stop you from doing away with the existing driveway that leads to the admin and having a left turn off of the new proposed driveway to bring the traffic over? And that way there you could literally close the whole front of that building off to Charlotte Furnace with landscaping. So now you've got one curb cut still, instead of increasing it to two.
I mean, other than, the only thing that I would say that could be an issue would be, you know, the creation of the additional impervious surface and the need to provide additional drainage for something.
But
to coming this way.
You'd be removing asphalt.
Moving this, so you're saying that's, yeah, okay. I mean, without looking at the numbers, it just, yeah.
It's just a thought. I mean, that was the other thing that I heard from folks, was especially the folks that live directly across the street, is the activity. Well, if the activity across the entire front of that lot disappears except for that one driveway, and all the traffic goes in and out of that driveway behind screening, then again, that kind of meets them halfway with, you know, we really want to expand, we really want to do this here. This is what we're willing to bring to the table to make everybody kind of accept it, you know, find it halfway.
No, I mean, if it were to work that way, I think it has some value to look at, and if it makes sense to do, and I mean, I think that the way you outline it, Mike, does make sense to evaluate. I don't know how they would feel about it, how it mixes with their plan. The only thing that I can see is that now we have intersection with normal traffic from administrative side with truck traffic, and by having it this way, it's distinct and separate. And I think that affords a certain amount of convenience to the service side of the business and a certain amount of convenience to the administrative side. So aside from the conflict of office traffic, let's say, mixing with the manufacturing traffic, that would really be the only downside.
But again, you use the word convenience. So it's the convenience of the business owner and his clients, but it's not really addressing the convenience of the people that live across the street.
I just still think that, that is something that would need to be looked at, as the interference between the truck traffic. I mean, my other projects that I work on in larger industrial sites, we always separate the service in manufacturing from the side of administration and
I get it.
employees. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, that's a very big company. That's the way they direct things to be done. That's the way they want things to run. So I kind of follow that mentality because it makes a certain degree of sense. But it's something that could be looked into.
I think that would go a long way.
Enhancing the landscaping in front of the existing building, so it does provide more cover. I mean, it looks the same way as the day they put the building up.
I think that's a condition that could be imposed on the project, and if that's the wish of the board to enhance landscaping, I think it certainly falls within your purview to require that.
Wow.
And I think some sort of a shield on the lighting facing across the street, that when you look at the building, you don't see all this bright lights.
Or just a...
Not that it casts light over there, but you still see these balls of fire.
Well, lighting is sophisticated now. There's nothing that says that it can't be computer controlled to go from 100 candle power to 2 candle power at dusk, after business hours.
Yeah, and I mean, I take that when you talk about putting them on time clocks and monitoring lighting in that manner, then, you can add the next level to it. It can be a dimming situation, it can be an on-off situation, it can be a combination of all the above. And,
But it's-
like you say, it's
all
a
computer controlled
It's a
now.
control issue
Right.
that's not a monumental
Correct.
task to perform.
So, but it's something that it can be accommodating to the neighbors, That
Correct.
was one of the things I heard was light. So, now, and you don't even have to pay a guy to run around when daytime savings goes away, daylight savings goes away, because it's all computer controlled. I mean, it takes care of it for you. So just,
No, I mean, I see that as just incremental costs associated with your lighting that's relatively,
Pretty-
cost-effective in
I would
some
say.
respects.
Yep.
George? Just one comment with respect to what Mr. King had said about that driveway. As a comparison, and I'm only suggesting as a comparison, that's all. Cape Cod Express on Toby Road has a single access and egress, 28 feet wide. This is 30. All of the traffic for not only Cape Cod Express, but for the
golf carts.
other stuff that's on the other side of the building, comes out that one driveway and seems to work.
Yep.
So it's not like it can't be done. It all depends on the willingness of certain people to do those kinds of things to accommodate what you're talking about.
So you got some direction, or do you want us to itemize possible?
Well, I mean, the direction that I hear seems to be more in the line of conditions that would be imposed on the project. There's not much that we can show with lighting, how it's controlled and what have you, could be a condition. I mean, the only element of work that I think that changed, the stockade fence along the property line, it's relatively simple. That could be a condition of approval. what else do we have? The trench cuts, you know, how that's going to be done, that could be a condition as well. I mean, there's nothing that I can do in the plan to address those types of things. The trash pickup, things like that. I think the biggest issue is if we were to investigate that linking the parking lots together, you know, that,
I would feel more comfortable voting after I saw something in the plan form that showed.
Well, I believe that probably the right thing to do is continue and consider these conditions and
And I'd like to see
illuminate them.
something on print that shows, yes, that driveway can be accomplished, you know, because it'd be silly for us to approve it with conditions and then have them come back and say, the driveway won't work, we want you to grant a waiver for that.
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, quite honestly, I think the driveway could work. I don't know how it's going to look on the side. I don't, you know, I don't, it's very mechanical as far as putting it together on a piece of paper. I just, you know, just wonder about the timing of things and, you know, what do we do once we show you that plan? You know, we present that plan and then, you know, where do we go from there? I mean, I know my client's anxious to get started, to get his financing and construction in order and what have you, and, you know, but at the same time, I know that we want a project that's going to be received well by the planning board and by the neighborhood. Exactly, and, you know, we want to work toward that end. I mean, we've always done that. I can come up with a sketch on the driveway. I mean, you know, I'd prefer not to have to wait for 2 weeks to get to take a temperature on it and what have you, but I think I can pull something together in short order, and whatever the wishes of the board is going to be. I mean, it's a big project, does take time. I get it. You know, been around a while, so I understand all the issues. So I sense that that's what you want us to look into, so if you know.
Well, I mean, that was my opinion, whether or not the other board members.
Why don't we take everybody's temperature on it, and if that's what's desired, then I think it's pretty clear.
At that point, we could have some, nail down the conditions to.
I could draft up a list of conditions, findings. Have that as well to you the next time around.
Ken, I have a hard enough time understanding you as it is. I can't hear a word you're saying.
I'll draft up findings and conditions
Okay,
for the next time.
all right. So that
Bill,
we're
I'm
prepared
anxious
to.
to see your sketch of the single driveway concept.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll get that done. What's today, Monday? You know, it'll be done before Friday.
And the fence too, right, Bill?
And there's no drainage ponds or anything like that in that area, right, Charlie? That would preclude us.
Oh, there's one in the front. There's one in the front for the existing, so depending on how the new arrangement comes out, it might still be usable.
Yeah.
So you might not have to do that again. Just one thing I'd point out, it wasn't mentioned anything about trying to measure what the ambient noise levels are. You don't want to make that a condition in my view. I think you'd want that information now if you feel it's important.
The only problem I have when they do that is it takes in road traffic not associated with this project and noises not associated with this project.
Well, that becomes
I know DEP's level is 10 decibels above background, which Bill pointed out, but where they take the background from is important.
Exactly, and the time of day when most of the activity is taking place is when you'd want to know what the ambient noise levels are. I don't think you have to take one at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, because if you condition it, they're not going to be dumping dumpsters then. That part of the noise problem disappears.
But I don't think those types of noises figure into the ambient background, because
No,
it's
they-
not a.
they don't.
Right, it's an intermittent type of situation. So I think if we had a processing plant that was processing material, and we had cooling towers that were running cooling through the thing 24/7, I think that's the type of noise that we're talking about. I think a noise study is a little excessive in this case. I mean, and I think that it could be conditioned that maybe we do some do some evaluations prior to the work, and if we find out that after the work, I mean, you have a 1-year review period usually for site plan review. If we find that the noise levels are excessive, then we can come back after that 1-year review. We'll have a year of operation under the belt and be able to have some real numbers. And if those things, if some other mitigation needs to be employed, then we can add that mitigation after that review.
It's done though. Once you put everything into play and you get and go ahead with this, there's no going back.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I didn't.
She just pointed out that once the building is up, it's done, that these things basically aren't revisited, which I think, unfortunately, in this particular site, it's probably the exception, you know, the rule that they didn't fully, I don't think they fully executed. First time, I know they were in a hurry to get open and get in production, and I think some things fell by the wayside that now is a good opportunity to catch up with.
No, and I agree with you, but I still think that, you know, mitigation can occur after the fact. I mean, if you know, now you know, once you know there's an issue, you can mitigate for that problem. I mean, if there is no issue and we provided X amount of mitigation in advance, I mean, that might be an unnecessary exercise.
Now,
That's all I'm,
Is this the existing dust collection that'll be inside the building?
yes.
So it's
No,
not-
no, the new dust collection will be inside.
So there'll be two? Or this one's replacing?
There may not be any. I mean, it may just be the exterior one there. I don't know how they're gonna establish work processes inside the facility. Once you have the new building built, then certain activities, certain operations might be moved into that, like assembly, for example, that's not a dust-producing activity. Maybe assembly gets moved over here. Maybe delivery is obvious, and distribution is obviously gonna be on that new section. So until they lay out how the activities are gonna occur inside, you know, we're really not gonna know. But I think that one thing we can say with 100% certainty, that there will be no new dust collecting equipment on the outside of the new building. And the stuff that's on the existing building is the equipment that will remain.
All right, let's follow that plan, have Ken draft up a recommended conditions on what we discussed, and
And I'll try to get a sketch to Ken by the end of the week or so to circulate, and we'll decide, you know, if it looks like a go, just let me know, and then I'll put it all to, you know, if we sense that it's a go, then I'll just put it all into production and get all the plans revised for a final time, hopefully. If that makes sense.
so with that, I would look for a motion to continue.
Motion to continue public hearing. Motion to continue this public hearing
September 14.
14th of September.
Second?
None, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for taking me out of order. It's much appreciated.
I've been on the other side before, so I'll spare.
Hi, Russell.
All right, the next item is to continue public hearing for site plan review for Borrego Solar on the 3 different sites. 27 Charge Pond Road, 140 Tyhonet Road, and 150 Tyhonet Road.
Good evening.
And
Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas. Borrego apologizes that they weren't able to be here this evening. To be honest, I was caught a little off guard that it was in person. And I think they were out of town and planning on Zooming in. So if you'd like, I can give an update since the last meeting.
Sure.
Okay. So I guess first, before I forget, I did notice on the agenda that some of the decision deadlines are coming up, and I did confirm that obviously we're happy to extend those since we know we owe you some revised materials on the various projects. 27 Charge Pond Road, the revisions are underway. We did finish the wetland delineation review with the conservation agent. We'll be revising the plans based on the board's feedback as well as those changes. The Tohonet sites are going to be hopefully wrapped up for a delineation review on Thursday, and then we'll take the board's feedback and the peer reviewers' feedback from Charge Pond and apply as best we can to the Tohonet sites to give you a revised plan on those as well, which we had discussed at the last meeting. I did submit some supplemental information with regard to the profiles and the pilot agreement. So for the pilot agreement, that has been agreed to, is my understanding. Borrego indicated that the town administrator did negotiate the rates up a little less than 10% from what we had presented at the last meeting. So it's now $12,000 per megawatt DC with a 2.5% annual escalation rate. And then in terms of the profiles, I'm happy to go through these, and we also submitted copies and thank the board for their time. I'm sorry I couldn't be at the site visit that you attended, but we did prepare 2 profile views, one for the southerly site and one for the northerly site as well. So in a nutshell, there had been a concern that the panels might be able to be visible over the trees. So what we're showing is the elevation at the ground surface of Red Pine Lane for the 140 Tohonet site, as well as the deck elevation and views across. So there's a slight buffer west of the pond. I think it's right around 50 feet wide. Here's the pond. Then there's a buffer of, I believe it's, 350 feet of wooded area. This wooded area plus this wooded area. This is Tohonet Road before you get to the solar panels. So you can see, the panels will not be visible over the treetops. And then there is a significant, 350-foot wooded here plus 50 feet west of the pond. So hopefully this alleviates the board's visual concerns, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about it. And then I'll just show you the northerly site, 150 as well from Pond Edge Trail.
That's Charge Pond, isn't it?
No, this is it's a little hard to tell because the view is skewed, but this is actually the northerly site for 140. We didn't do a view shed from 27 Charge since there hadn't been the same concerns. So from Pond Edge Trail here, from this property, the view looking across the pond, we did this oblique view because here it rises fairly quickly adjacent to the pond, so we wanted to look across where we thought there could most likely be the potential for impact. And similarly, you won't be able to see over the trees. And these are actually measured canopy elevations as well that Borrego had obtained. So it's the, actual tree heights that are shown. And then there's a significant buffer as well. For this project, the buffer is 600 feet of wooded area east of the pond and a little under, I misspoke, and a little under 50 feet west of the pond. For Red Pine Lane, it's 120 feet west of the pond and 350 feet east of the pond. So that's really the update that we have in a nutshell. We are still working on the other comments, and we'll prepare a response to comments and revised plans, but did want to be responsive to the visual comments that had been raised by the board.
I came in late to the site visit. Was there anything you want to?
Sorry?
I came in late to that site visit, so I don't know if there's anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think she's covered it.
No, this is pretty much what we asked for.
Yep.
And so we could understand the visibility of the panels, and it answers the question for me. You think it's complete, Michael?
Yeah. No, I definitely addressed the concern.
you have the visibility we talked about from the top of the deck we were looking at in the back?
Yep.
Right.
So on the profile views, we showed at-ground surface, and then we also estimated
That's the other.
a deck on the houses as well, which is shown. So there's two little people to show you if you're standing on the ground, and then there's one pointing to the deck elevation too.
Russell, do you note where the water line is?
Yep.
I mean, and then that's down there, and
That's
then the
where we
black,
were,
that's
right.
the deck way up.
Yeah. Yeah, so the deck at Pond Edge Trail was, I want to say 80 feet. Yeah, elevation 80 feet for the deck. So the deck is this top dash line. Brings you kind of through the tops and middles of the trees, and then the ground surface.
And also, there's gonna be excavation where those panels go on the other side of the buffer?
Yes, so what we've shown is the proposed grade. So at the 150 site, I always get them mixed up, at the northerly 150 site, there's much less earth moving happening. So it's pretty much existing grade will be the same as proposed grade. On the southerly site, we've shown the proposed grade in this dash line here. So this is being cut down significantly, and this is the existing grade, and then the proposed grade where the panels will be. So even at the existing grade, if it were staying existing grade, you would not see the panels over the treetops.
One question.
Yep.
My understanding is the right-of-way for the power lines is going to be widened to accommodate the new lines that have to be put in to take the power that these fields are.
That I will have to ask Borrego about.
Okay.
Was that something discussed at the site visit?
It wasn't, but there was an abutters letter that was received by the homeowner of the site visit, and it was informing them that that right-of-way is going to be substantially widened.
Oh, received from the utility company?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just curious how, because you can see that right-of-way across the pond, so I was just curious if anybody knew how wide.
I don't, but I will mark it to ask Borrego. I'm not sure if it's in association with these projects or part of their typical
It is.
widening.
We talked extensively with the gentleman from Borrego, and
Okay.
I had brought up the fact that they're not going to be able to connect these to the grid without a substantial investment and upgrade of the lines, and which he reiterated that, yes, that's true.
Right.
So I'm assuming that this widening of the right-of-way to accommodate the new lines is a result of this project. I was just curious, does it go from 75 feet wide to 300 feet wide, or is it just minimal?
I'm sure even if it's something that Borrego maybe isn't aware of, that we could try and find that answer. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's for these projects or not, but I'll mark it down to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment on the proposal?
Kathy Pepperlarda, Wareham Land Trust. One of the questions that I did have was, Stacy had mentioned that there was the money from the timber that was going to be harvested on the property, that was going to go to the town. And I was wondering if there's a way to condition where in the town that went, since the money is coming from harvesting trees. Can it be designated to go towards land protection or the conservation department or anything like that versus going into the town general coffers, which is where the tax revenue would be going that's going to come from this property for its life?
I don't know if that was addressed by whoever negotiated that.
So, my
You have-
understanding is that the money can be used for whatever the town would like in terms
Of going to the general fund?
project, but I don't know whether it's going to be designated for a specific project or... I don't know whether it's going to be designated for a specific project, if that's been discussed, or what fund it would be, and I think Borrego would likely be amenable to whatever the board prefers.
I think the town would probably and I'm guessing would rather put it in the general fund, but
I would guess they would also. I'm just asking, is there a way, since it's,
Would you have a recommendation?
yes, that it be designated to go to conservation, the conservation department. It's harvesting the trees. We've been discussing about the thousands of trees that are going to come down in the name of energy, and the natural resources that are going to be destroyed there that we're trying to save with the vernal pools, especially at 27 Charge Pond Road, trying to minimize the impact to those vernal pools, which as special as they are and as sensitive as they are, we're still not sure what the temperature effect is going to be with the number of trees that are coming down around there, the amount of shade that is going to be lost. How's the whole temperature change in that area going to change in regards to affecting who is in those vernal pools? We don't know. We haven't, that's been brought up. Dave Pichette has mentioned it in his report. We don't know what's going to happen to those vernal pools, but leaving a little space around them, I don't know what's going to happen to that, you know, what the mitigation is of all of the trucks and stuff that are going to be driving through there in regards to the soil compaction. All these trees that are leaving, it's trees. It would make sense that if, rather than the money go back into the town general coffers, have it designated for conservation. Maybe there could be some planting somewhere, or money could be used to save some other projects in town. The Walmart project, because box turtles, which is a species of special concern in Massachusetts, were on that property where Walmart went in. Walmart had to put aside $235 for mitigation. That property's nowhere near as big as all this. This $80,000 is just coming from the trees. That $235,000 had to be put aside to buy land that had eastern box turtles on it. And I would bet there's eastern box turtles out there. They don't exactly show up when you call them. They don't get out of the way of bulldozers either. They're usually just killed. But speaking of the facts, which is $80,000 for the timber there, it would be nice if that was designated to go into something like conservation department. So it could be used towards land purchase or something along those lines. It's trees coming down, use it to buy some land that has trees on it. Preserve some land someplace else. The money that's coming from this project over the 20-year lifespan, which was 1-point-something million, I believe.
14 million.
In tax money.
I'd have to confirm it now and defer to Borrego, since it's been negotiated up since I last reported to the board.
Okay. That money we know is going into the town general coffers. But this $80,000, I didn't hear that it was designated, so that would be my suggestion, or ask, can that go into something like that?
Would you try to think of a specific, maybe, for us to consider where the money would go? I know you're saying conservation, but I mean, Dave Pichette runs that, and then would he just have the ability to use it, or?
The Land Trust has partnered with conservation on some projects, that
Yeah.
land that was purchased for the town, where the Land Trust raised some money and Concom put in some money, and land
if
grant.
you'd like to put forth a proposal of how you think that should be executed, I would submit it to Derek and see how it would fly.
You would submit it, or I should submit it?
We can do it if you like, but I think, you know, if it's your idea, you should.
I can do that. I don't want to
If the
step on,
la-
I
if-
don't want to step on toes.
I don't want to say we're going to condition it a certain way and
Sure.
then find out the execution falls short of what we've
Okay.
asked for, so
Okay.
think it out and.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
If the Wareham Land Trust had $80,000, what would they do with it?
We would use it as a down payment, deposit, or something to, there's land projects we're working on that I'm not at liberty to talk about.
Understood, but it would go toward land purchasing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wanted to check.
We still are all volunteer. We have no staff.
Understand.
Those box turtles patty pretty hard, you know?
Yeah, I know.
That was all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nancy McHale from West Wareham. I have a question, and I'm sorry I've lost track. Has the conservation agent been out and finished his site review of both 140 and 150?
He's largely finished the southerly site, and they've finished a portion of the northerly site. He anticipates, I believe, finishing it this Thursday for 140 and 150 to haunt it. The review at 27 Charge Pond has been finished.
Okay. And the vernal pools and things that have been identified on those have been, when were those identified? And just because there's such a seasonal effect to when the amphibians are available or are there and using it.
So we conducted a wetland delineation and then subsequent vernal pool specific monitorings based on our observations in the field. So forgive me, don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but there were something like 7 or 8 mapped potential vernal pools by the Mass GIS system. We actually identified a couple others that we thought looked like they could function as potential vernal pools just based on their inundation characteristics and things like that. And so then we conducted multiple visits in the spring to sample the vernal pools, audio-visual surveys, dip netting, to see if there were any animals using the pools. We did find wood frog egg masses and subsequently tadpoles in several of them. And those have been designated as the potential vernal pools, and a minimum 100-foot setback has been maintained from those.
Okay. The other question is, has there been any thought given to when the potential site work would be done in the areas of those sensitive sites?
I can check with Borrego in terms of the construction timing. It's not something that I recall coming up with Conservation Commission. I think in part because in the vicinity of those vernal pools, we're actually outside of their jurisdiction because we did maintain the minimum 100-foot buffer zone. I think, post-construction in terms of the animals' ability to move around the site, they won't be hindered. It's not, a typical development that has significant impervious areas or buildings or things that are actually blocking them. And then the temperature, I'll just address now if that's okay, that was brought up by the other commenter. I think certainly I can't say definitively there won't be a change, but there's still going to be 100 feet of wooded area off of those potential vernal pools. So I think no one would question that within the solar facility itself, I would imagine temperatures would change. Perhaps not under the solar panels themselves, so maybe it's less of a change than I'm thinking it could be, but in terms of at the potential vernal pools and for the 100 feet away from them, I would not anticipate significant temperature changes.
Okay. And the other question was, any roads that are going in, will those affect drainage into or out of the vernal pools?
No, so we were very careful in our stormwater analysis and actually created more design points than we would typically do. Because of the various wetlands and potential vernal pools on the site, we wanted to make sure that we were not changing their hydrology, including for the roads. It's not just the roadways, it's also the change in cover type as well.
Okay. And I've lost track of when will that 27 Charge Pond Road site plan be completed or looked at?
So the wetland delineation review was completed, if not last week, the week prior. We need to locate the changed flags and then update the revised design. So we're shooting for as soon as possible. We're waiting for the surveyor to locate the wetland flags, and then we'll be able to update the revised design. So I would be hopeful that before the next planning board meeting, we would have revised plans to you. That's our goal. It may slip depending on the timing of those new flags.
Okay.
Or revised flags.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
There's no paving involved with the roads for this project, is there?
Correct. There's
Right.
no paved roads.
Any other questions?
What would be a reasonable continuance to get the decision?
Because they have to do the plans. They have to modify the plans.
You're doing it to me with the mask and the plastic too, I can't.
A reasonable time to do the decision.
Yeah.
Done in a week.
Well, what was the question?
Well, we have X amount of days after the decision.
14 days after the decision.
Is one of these,
The correct,
they're all gonna need an extension.
the correct decision deadline is October 11th for Borrego site plan review.
But that's just for one, right?
That's for all of them. They're all submitted at the same time.
I thought I saw different ones on the agenda, but maybe
Got
I,
three different deadlines on this chart.
Yeah, that's when I noticed that something was wrong about the deadlines that were put on there.
oh.
But it should all be October 11th as the deadline.
I was wondering about that, but then I thought maybe we ended up submitting them at a different time. Okay, so it's all October 11th for these three then, as opposed to the Septembers?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. That, I had just seen the Septembers, and I wanted to make sure that you knew, obviously, we knew we owed you plans.
So, remaining information would be ready for the next meeting, you said?
That's our goal. I think, is your next meeting the September 14th?
14th.
Yeah, that's what we're targeting. Certainly for 27 Charge Pond Road. I don't know whether it'll be feasible for the 140 and 150 Tohonets, where their delineation review is finishing up this Thursday, but we're trying to address them as readily as possible.
Do you have anything, Charlie? So I'd look to continue to the 14th.
Motion to continue this public hearing till the 14th of September.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was nice seeing you in person.
I said that I'd like to make a comment about our solar bylaws before the meeting's over at your convenience. It won't take long at all.
There was one issue that was to go on the agenda and couldn't be accomplished. I see the gentleman's here, so they're just seeking an opinion on whether they've met the circle, the building circle, or
The thingy.
you getting rusty on these live meetings. If the board would indulge just a quick look-see at what they've proposed.
Sure.
They want this information prior to submitting an A and R if we're okay with their lot shape factor, that's the word.
We may approach, we have some hard copies too, if you guys want the hard copies.
I'll take one.
Would just identify yourself and you.
Yep, I'm Brendan Brewer with 504 Main Street.
And I'm Peter Lyons with Collins Engineering, here tonight with Brendan.
Thank you, sir.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, so basically we bought 504 Main Street. It was a foreclosed property. It was kind of a blight, and we've started making the improvements on the property. As the property is, we're trying to get a new construction, a new lot with 200 feet of frontage on Stony Run Drive by subdividing the lot. We believe we meet all the requirements excluding the 150-foot diameter circle, which is in Article 6, 615, the lot shape factor. We have 200 feet of frontage, 37,000 square feet, which it's an MR 30 zone, which requires the 30,000. So we have 7,313 square feet more than that, and 51 feet of frontage additional. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we're coming.
You say you met the lot shape factor?
We do not. We can't get the 150-foot diameter to fit onto where the existing carriage house that's with the 504 Main Street. We're trying to keep that all together where, not break those two apart.
I want to make sure I understand. The lot appears to be about 75 by 200. Is that?
Yeah, the frontage on Main Street is 73 feet.
Right.
With the little jog, it's, the majority of the lot is about 100 feet wide. And then there is a remainder, the proposed lot is actually 7,000 square feet over, which a lot of that contributes to the portion in the back of the property. As Brendan mentioned, we're working around the existing carriage house, so to meet those setbacks, we do have a little bit of an irregular shape to the proposed lot.
An existing carriage house on this lot?
That's correct, associated with the existing 504 property.
So if you see, it's kind of covered in the tree portion, but where that driveway comes to the rear of the property.
Right about where it says Google at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, pretty.
To the right?
It's not off, so.
Yeah, right there.
There's a carriage house, oh, is that it there?
Correct, and there's 2 cars parked in front of it.
That's part of this lot?
That's part of the existing house.
What is this 66.7 over here?
Where are we looking?
Right here.
Okay.
That's this dimension.
Yeah, that's just a.
Yeah, that's just the remaining, it's a remaining distance from the original parcel.
That you're proposing the subdivision on right there, so that,
Yep, so the existing right line is, call it 223 feet deep. So we would be proposing, the L-shaped line between the lots. So the 223 splits into 156 feet for the existing building, and then the remaining 66.7 to proposed Lot A.
what's the requirement for street frontage here right now in this district?
150.
150 is the required frontage. The proposed lot frontage is on Stony Run Drive. We have 201 linear feet of frontage, and then an additional 73 feet on Main Street. We maintain the required 150 foot on the existing 504 lot. So, from a frontage standpoint, we have, extra space on the proposed lot. The lot's 7,000 square feet over. Again, just working with the existing buildings, there's really plenty of space to make the lot work from a logistical standpoint. We are proposing the new house relatively centered in the lot, away from any abutters, and pretty well balanced between the road and any existing structures.
You've done a real nice job on the existing house there.
Thank you.
Yeah, looks good.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of work, but it's, 1840, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of bringing it back to its true colors,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. This would be, this house would be the footprint that's proposed to go on Stony Run. Just a colonial 2-car garage.
where does this fall within our proposed business overlay district that would be the new district we're working on? Where does this fall?
Outside.
This is
Outside?
north.
Okay.
Yeah,
No.
this is,
You're talking
it's
about the new
outside Wareham Village too.
Yeah, we're in.
Right. I mean, we do, I mean, this area, it's the MR30 zone, which is the multi-residential. I don't think that's the best use for that house where it's, you know, I think that, you know, if we didn't get that, we'd be more apt to think, okay, well, we have the frontage on the main street to make a multifamily there, but I don't think that's the approach we wanted to do. We think it'd be better for the neighborhood if we went with a single family on that adjacent property.
What's the hardship proposed for the
It's
variance?
that 150.
Yeah, what is your hardship to negate that requirement, the 150 circle? You're presenting.
Yeah, the reason we can't get that circle to work is primarily due to the existing structures. Mostly this carriage house in the back, by the time we meet the required building setbacks to keep it conforming, we're just kind of funneled in a little bit. So we're about, without a real measurement, we're probably 40 or 50 feet shy of being able to fit the circle. So yeah, that's basically our issue. Without altering the carriage house location to maintain the setbacks, the proposed lot lines are about as tight as we can get them.
That was the first thing that entered my mind, was moving the carriage house.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's a pretty
significant.
It's a pretty big stretch.
Right.
It's not like you're missing the circle by 5 feet or 10 feet. I mean,
Yeah.
you're missing it by 30%.
So George, just to make a couple comments, this does come more into as opposed to the one where we granted a waiver earlier tonight. This is more of an odd-shaped lot situation. However, I will say, looking at the lots to the south of it, and you can look here, these existing homes here and here and in here, these are on much smaller than 30,000 square foot lots. This is all, this would end up as wasted space unless we would allow something like this. So my initial thought is that this is something that we should allow.
I would say if you allowed that much of a disparity, then everyone's going to want that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's too far. And I drive by the house all the time when I'm out and about, and I agree with Ken. I think you're doing a fabulous job. Every time I go by, I just love that old house.
Yep.
When you cleared out all of the brush and the overgrowth and all the stuff to the right side of the house, as you look at it, you started to produce this grandiose lawn that fits that house. Now you're talking about stuffing a house on it.
Right.
And me personally, I think it would be out of place. Aside from the fact that the lot just doesn't work for the circle. I think you'd be doing, I understand, you know, the desire economically, but I think you'd be doing the original structure a disservice by plopping a modern-day house so close to it.
I see what you're saying, but I kind of agree that it's consistent with the neighborhood, and because I know this big dogleg here is borderline on what we would accept. I wish there was another way to do it, because
As I say, the carriage house placement is what's shooting you in the foot.
Right. and to keep the classic look of the original structure with that carriage house, I think it plays a good
Yeah, the
part.
carriage
We-
house needs to be there.
We agree, so.
I mean, an additional point, I know we're dealing with the shape factor, but as far as the aesthetics, yes, 504 is obviously the more historical lot, but as you go down Stony Run, I mean, those are more modern houses. Our setback to Main Street is almost double from what the existing house is. I mean, I don't think we're crowding in on it by any means. And the proposed dwelling does more so fit the existing houses on Stony Run Drive. So, yeah. I don't think, yes, there is a nice big open yard over here. As far as open space, the whole front area, on the corner of Main and Stony Run is going to be preserved. It's going to be open lawn just as it is now.
And Stony Run, if you look at Stony Run from Main Street, you can't see the houses anyway. They're further up the road according to Google. So it may be more fitting for the houses on Main, on Stony Run, I get that.
Yep.
But you can't see those houses now anyway.
I think,
One directly across the street, directly across Stony Run, is another large,
Yeah.
very, it may be more modern as far as time built, but it still
Right.
has that older feel to it. So those two houses complement each other really nicely.
I actually think that one's older.
Is it really?
It's just,
The one with the gardens in the front yard?
yeah.
1700 and something, I think.
Really?
Was that the old tax house, Charlie?
Chris Semple's lived.
Yeah, but before that, way back, Chris was there for years, I know that. Then it went in disrepair for a little while, but it's good to see it coming back.
Just
I think if they did draw the line to get the shape factor, it would be a real disservice to 504.
Yeah, I agree.
that's kind of what we ran into. We played the numbers. We'd like to keep those two together. I mean, if it had to, then we could, I guess, include that carriage house in the subdivision with the original house to get the lot shape factor. But
Well, I mean, if the carriage house moved and you were able to draw the line so that you could get the circle in it, then our opinion of what it looks like really doesn't matter at that point.
Problem is, Mike, you can't get it. No
Even with
matter,
the car-
no matter where you move that line from the outside boundaries, you can't get the 150 feet without hitting the main house.
Oh, so that kind of answers the question then.
So given that these gentlemen are just looking for an attitude, how do we provide that to them? We ask everybody to give their attitude?
I think everybody has but you, Mike.
I like the old house, I think it looks great. I like the carriage house, and that is Main Street. I don't think that new house would fit into the carriage on Main Street. Coming to Wareham, Stony Run's behind, you can't see that.
That's right.
It's good to see that some of the old houses aren't knocked down and rebuilt into something plastic coated and modern. It's not gonna work, it doesn't work, it doesn't fit.
.504 a historic building as well?
no.
Did you say you had zoning to do a multifamily there, you said?
Well, the zoning in a multifamily is you need 45,000 square feet
Yep.
and 200 feet of frontage. in that zone, which we do have.
You'd have to change that 504 into a multifamily. You couldn't do a separate.
Correct. It would be that house that's right now a single family would be transformed into a multifamily, which we didn't think would be best for that neighborhood right there. We thought doing two single families would be better for, you know, the residents of Stony Run, the residents across the street.
One single family would be even better.
What is it? Sorry.
One single family would be even better.
Okay.
I don't want to hear that, but
Is this, the house that, 504, is this your residence, or is this a investment property?
So it's an investment. Right Way Construction is the company. My father owns the company. He's back there. What we do is we sometimes buy these foreclosed properties in between different jobs. It keeps our guys busy. This one we happened to buy right as COVID was happening. Got kind of nervous. Didn't have much stuff coming in. This was a great thing to put guys on right away that we could, you know, keep everybody busy. You know, when we started looking into it, the work that went into it, you know, with the square footage of the lot, you know, we're looking to maximize the most out of this lot. And we thought that by maximizing it by a multifamily or maximize it by two singles, and we weighed the differences, and, you know, we've had a good relationship with the church so far, and we just trying to think what was best for the neighborhood, and this is what we came up with. And obviously, we have that hardship of the carriage house, the placement of it, you know. And we tried to do our best to work around that, and that's the best we could come up with without, you know, going too crazy, and being able, we tried our best to be able to make that 150-foot diameter work. But
I mean, I get the concept, but I
think you're hard pressed to get that variance, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I say my own, if it were put to a vote today, if you were looking for an opinion, I don't think I would be in favor of it, to be honest.
Ideally, if we didn't have to deal with frontage and lot shape factors, if you followed the registered land line, I think you'd have two nice lots, but we can't do that here.
right.
I mean, does the board have any, you know, proposals or insight as to how to attain this into two workable lots? I mean, if we can reconfigure the proposed lot lines and get a little closer to the circle factor, are we, you know, do we have a potential plan, or if we can't fit the circles, it's a done deal? I mean, we just kind of need to know where to take it next from a planning perspective. Obviously, our intent is to get two individual lots. There's already been work done on the carriage house. You know, it's not like a shed we can just knock down and say, oh, well, let's get rid of that and, you know, make the lots work better, but
does your lot line go right up to Stony Run, or is there a sliver in it that belongs to that layout?
Looks like it goes to the layout line.
It is right here.
The 156 feet on the right, what's that butt up against?
that's all, actually, is that the church? This is all the church
Yeah,
lot
the
on
church
the...
owns some land. They have like a house, then they have the church, then they have, I believe, the rec, not the rec center, but the,
I think there's two houses here.
I say it's too
Lot
bad.
one, lot two, both have houses on them.
It's too bad that there wasn't a side street along that way. You just move your driveway to the other side to lead
They
up to the carriage
access
house.
from the circle up above,
Mhm.
not from Stone.
Billy's house used to be right in the corner.
I mean, a multi's not a bad thing either, you know, like,
yeah,
you make that work, people need housing.
yeah.
I just, no matter which way you slice it, you run into the existing,
Carriage house, yeah.
yeah, you
right.
just run into it with that. And we have to deal with it. I mean, it's the odd shape. We deal with it all the time. And if everyone could get 30%, then we'd have a lot more lots that were built on at this point, until that bylaw's changed, I think. Or if it's changed.
No, it's not the typical hockey
No.
stick. It's a substantial piece of property.
Well, that's the other thing I was gonna say too. I believe it said, what, 30 feet is the minimum width you can have on any portion of your property on a subdivision, I believe. So that's more, I mean, it looks like a hockey stick is the size of the, but there is a significant amount of space there over that 30 feet. But,
Did you get the input you wanted?
yeah, I got some good input here.
Is that Board of Appeals thing, or that rests solely here? Board of Appeals way to address that, or is that?
Got all that you need right here. Because the lot shape factor says, for lots that don't meet it and are not detrimental to the intent of the regulation, the planning board has the authority to waive the requirement. So you don't need to go to the Board of Appeals.
Well, I think we're kind of deadlocked as we, on the, whether it meets the meaning of the shape factor, whether it meets the intent. Frontage, well, it's not considered Main Street, it's MR 30, that's why. I don't know how else you could draw it to make it look better. I'm sure you've tried that already.
Yeah, we have.
It's possible the way we draw it, including the carriage house with the new dwelling. I mean, and we could probably maybe make that work, but again, I don't think that's the best use for that area. I don't think it'll look as good as, you know, keeping the two together, the existing, and not separating the two structures.
Yeah, you'd still have to do, whatever comes something good in the way, so.
But maybe it'll fit. Right.
And then you might be able to fit.
George, I think we,
here.
in the direction of what we're thinking, and I think we should, down the road.
Yeah, I think we need to move on.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Yeah, unless you want to hold on to a set. I don't know if you want to hold on to a set, or we can take them back.
Got one in the box, so we're all set.
Okay.
You got one in the box, you said?
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have on the agenda. Rich, you wanted to make a...
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I had forwarded to this board a zoning, the solar section of our current zoning laws. And I did this because I was given some input by a person that I trust, that has a lot of background in this, when he told me that Wareham's solar laws are rather lax and easy for developers to come in and do. And then I read the solar laws very closely, and I read them several times, and the laws, the way they're written, actually encourage solar development in our town. And that may have been fine when they were put in place, but I think that we have a lot of solar in Wareham now, and I think it's time that this board take a look at that solar bylaw and maybe tighten it up a little bit, and specifically looking at buffer zones. The latest project to come in had a requirement of 50-foot buffer zones, and the immediate request was to go more. And I think that's a perfect example of something that I think our community is saying to us, that I'm saying to myself, that the developers are willing to do. We have an opportunity to tighten these up a little bit. And what I'd like to propose is that I'll take a first stab at what I think those changes might be. I'll share them with this board, and we can talk about it and consider it for a possible article at a future town meeting.
I agree.
That'd be board willing to participate on something like that?
Yep, sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all.
We have a staff report.
There was one other item that was brought up by Mr. Swenson on the notification of the public hearings. And I was wondering if the intent, if we get the dates right, of having the upcoming hearings and the deadlines, if that's information that you want to have that addresses that issue.
I missed it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
What do you want?
You had mentioned that you wanted to get copies of the public hearing notices, and I'm saying that putting on the agenda, the public hearing notice, the public hearing date, is that sufficient?
What I saw on the agenda tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely sufficient. As long as the documentation is posted in the projects page on our website.
Right.
Right? And that satisfies me totally.
All right.
I just hate coming into these public hearings and not knowing.
Right.
You know, and I want some time to read up on it a little bit. That's all.
Russell, the appointing authority is going to meet Thursday. Recommendation would be to move you to full membership.
Okay.
Great.
Before you realize what's going on and run screaming.
Yeah, I
into
was just
the
going
net.
to say. Get him while he's still oblivious.
Okay.
If that's about it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, there it is.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. 9:02.